You still don't like this new press regulator. It's a year in. Why not?
IPSO is a sham. It was set up by newspaper proprietors and editors under the guise of a rather secretive organisation called the Regulatory Funding Company, who basically are vested interests of the press. So they're acting really as judge, jury and executioner. So really it's not an effective independent regulatory body at all. And the public opinion reflects this in all the polls that have been done. 78% or upwards of that regard the Leveson inquiry as important, and not only that, but any regulatory body has to be Leveson compliant, and IPSO isn't that, and actually makes a point of claiming not to be.
In the last year, I think it's looked at something like 200 complaints, and it's upheld 48 of them. I mean, it is dealing with complaints and ordering corrections and retractions, isn't it?
No, I don't think it is. It's doing as much as it needs to do to appear to be compliant. There really is, most people who have been polled regard it as not effective. It actually, most people agree that the PCC that ran before was completely ineffective. It failed to spot the hacking scandal at all, and actually the new body is more or less the PCC Mark II. It's housed in the same offices, populated by the same staff.
Okay.
It really is the same old story.
Okay, let me introduce Steve Coogan, if you don't mind.
The people who are behind it, the people who fund it, are people who have no interest in effective press regulation. Their only interest really are protecting their commercial interests, increasing their profit margins, and any appearance for it to be an effective press regulator are just specious, because, as I say before, they've made a point, and they're rather proud of it not being Leveson compliant.
Okay, Steve Coogan, I have sitting next to me here in the studio the chief executive of IPSO. He's called Matt T. He's been listening to you. He's literally just joined us here. Mr. T, what do you say to Steve Coogan? Talk to him directly when he says you represent a sham organisation.
I don't represent a sham organisation. I represent an organisation that's doing a very valuable job for the public in investigating complaints and in stopping harassment by publications where that happens.
But you're just the same, this is the criticism, as the old Press Complaints Commission.
I'd say basically the people on my side of the argument don't have any paymasters the way he does. His wages are being paid by the same organisation that is trying to protect their vested interests.
Okay, well, let him respond to that.
Anyone. I'm saying this because I believe
let him
no
respond.
one's paying my wages. No one pays the wages of people in Hacktoff. We're independent people who have a very, very sincere belief in this. And we don't have a big organisation. We don't have deep pockets.
Okay, well, let Matt T respond to you, Steve Coogan. Matt T, respond to Steve Coogan.
So we are funded by the press. But that's actually
that's the key point, isn't it?
It isn't the key point. What Leveson said was,
how can you possibly be independent then?
What Leveson said was that there should be independent self-regulation of the press. The only thing you can do is either have a regulator which is funded by the industry that it regulates. That's a very common arrangement, or you have a regulator that's funded by the public purse. And we believe that it would be wrong to be funded by the public purse. That really would call into question our independence. The regulator is headed up by my chairman, who is a former appeal court judge. I'm a former Whitehall Civil Service Permanent Secretary. We are very independent people. We behave very independently.
Isn't perception everything? The fact that you are funded by newspapers means that people can't trust you.
Victoria, I would say you have only two options. I don't think people would trust us if we were funded by the state, by the taxpayer. What I would say is that we should be seen on the job we do, and we are handling complaints for people, and we are dealing with harassment where it happens.
Steve Coogan, they are dealing with harassment when it happens.
The other thing to point out actually at this point is that the people in IPSO who claim to want to, who complain about Impress and complain about us at Hacktoff because they see themselves as or Leveson compliance as being in some way threatening to the press, are the same people who are quite happy to operate under a system which completely lacks plurality.
Okay, but just deal with the point that Matt T has made. The point that Matt T has made is that they are dealing with complaints of harassment.
It's all good. It's saying we are saying we are independent, right, doesn't cut it. You can say we're independent as much as you like.
No, he's saying they are dealing with complaints of harassment.
And it's clearly not transparent because the paymasters are the very people who own the newspapers. It's judge, jury and executioner. The same people who control the press shouldn't be policing themselves. That's blindingly obvious.
They're not policing themselves. We have a board and a complaints committee which are made up by a majority of people with no background in the press at all. So it isn't the press overseeing themselves. It's being overseen by independent regulation.
What's the problem with Leveson compliance? Tell me your problem with that.
The problem with Leveson...
with being Leveson compliant.
What Hactoff would like us to do is seek recognition under the Royal Charter. The newspapers that we regulate, and indeed the ones we don't, have made clear that they will not join a regulator that is recognised under the Royal Charter. Alan Rusbridger of The Guardian, no right-wing media baron, described the Royal Charter as being effectively controlled by ministers. Now,
okay,
if the Guardian
let me go back to Steve Coogan then. What is the big deal about the Royal Charter? Just explain that to our audience. Why would that satisfy you, Mr. Coogan?
The Royal Charter was actually a sap to the press to try and reach a compromise.
So what is
we didn't particularly want a Royal
okay.
Charter in the first place.
Right.
That was an acquiescence to the press to try and reach an agreement. So for them to turn around later and then criticise it is total hypocrisy.
So what do you
that was
want
part
now?
Of the original negotiation.
What do you want now? Do you want taxpayers to fund this organisation?
In IPSO, who can't fully explain why they don't want to be Leveson compliant. And I'll tell you the real reason is because they're worried that it will affect their profit margins and their profitability.
Okay.
And claims to have an effective regulator is an absolute sham. Most people agree with this. The public
you've made that
polls
point.
show
I'm going to give
people want
Matt
a Leveson
final 20 seconds. This is about protecting newspapers' profit margins.
Is contempt for their readership.
Rubbish. What it's about is about protecting the public. It's
the
about
victims,
having a regulator that covers the vast majority of newspapers and magazines
If you
in this
both
country.
talk at the same time, we can't hear either of you.
It's about having a regulator that covers the vast majority of newspapers and magazines in this country where there is an effective process for people to seek redress if they feel that they've been illed by the press. And that's what we are.